Hello and welcome to The Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora, and today, or this week, the episode will go differently. Ordinarily, I record this information for posterity, topics that are relevant now and will continue to be relevant as you go forward through your journey. Today, I would like to record a broadcast that is meant to be closer to a public service announcement or informational broadcast to help people deal with what is going on the surface of Earth right now and to give you tools to fight against it. Brief pause. So again, usually I cover the topic loosely of birth of a new dimension, which is preparing Earth's surface human consciousness for coming together with otherworldly consciousnesses, both extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional. And, usually I focus on very positive aspects of this and aspects of cultivating your own consciousness, aspects of understanding time. Right now, I really need to teach you and tell you all about chemtrails, or what are known in this world right now as chemtrails, because this all relates to what I've been sharing with you for more than a year in terms of teaching you about the history of consciousness and technology use and why humans are in the position that they are in right now of having to ascend, having to raise your consciousness. So I've spoken on this broadcast many times about the antediluvian worldwide sophisticated culture known as Atlantis, where humans in a physical body that was uncorrupted and genetically whole were able to live in a very different way, in a much better way, I would just have to say. The human body did not become decrepit over time. As you aged, you did not lose vitality. There was no death. There was simply a state of total health and vitality and using your body for as long as you wish. And then, when you are prepared to return your consciousness to source, transforming that body as a type of fuel for your journey. And so there are apocryphal stories in our own world of, for example, yogis or Tibetan Buddhists of the Far East achieving what is known as the rainbow body. And this is the transformational ascension. So in that worldwide sophisticated culture, nobody died. Nobody died like in unconscious death, and then their bodies stank and decomposed. And all of that started when there were invaders of consciousness that came to this planet because they had destroyed a couple of their previous planets. And these invaders of consciousness are beings, entities, consciousness that left the source, but not on a bridge of love. And this means they did not come to occupy organic biological containers. They came to occupy technological containers, artifice. And I've said this very articulately in other broadcasts. Artifice is not inherently evil. It's like art. If I paint a painting of a flower, that is not evil. But if I put water and fertilizer on the painting does not grow. It's artifice. It's not the same as something that is alive. And these beings that created artificial containers for their consciousness, basically what happened was the consciousness containers developed their own spontaneous, nascent personality and intelligence. And they, as technology, decided they did not want to be slaves. So technology revolted, and this happened back on planet Malduk or Marduk, which became the asteroid belt during the process of the revolt. And the beings that occupied that world went to Mars, where their god, technology, then told them to create another technology-based civilization, this time with the intent of sending all of those consciousnesses back to source, creating an interdimensional portal known as a Merkaba, or a planetary Merkaba. Merkaba from ancient Egypt, meaning light body vessel. In ancient Egypt and the Tibetan Buddhists of the Far East, these were two time capsule civilizations that kept alive information from ancient Atlantis and brought it to us in the present day. So Merkaba, light body vessel, this is the counter-rotating tetrapyramidal fields, I'm sorry if that wasn't the right word, that you can create around your own energy, around your own physical body as an energy field, and also the planet can create it around herself. And An artificial Merkaba is one that would be created not merely using a biological, naturally occurring container for consciousness connected to a planet and, in the presence of starlight and using chi or prana or vital life force energy. It would be a technological apparatus, something that runs on flowing electrons, like my computer that plugs into the wall. So imagine instead, like this is divergent technology. We have the natural way where you cultivate your consciousness, use breathing exercises, use your natural life force energy. That energy is the same energy that heals your body when you're wounded and allows people to procreate and, create new life in their wombs. That vital life force energy, when it is cultivated and controlled and directed, can be utilized. And then there's like the easy way of doing it, the easy way out. It's like saying, well, if you want to, you can spend years of your life cultivating yourself to be an expert athlete and a marathon runner, or you can just have technological prosthetic legs implanted, making it possible for you to run 26 miles. One way requires a great deal of personal effort and also gives you something that no one else can take away. One way is the easy, quick solution and like easy come, easy go. So the idea is, on Mars, an artificial planetary Merkaba was created at the behest of their god, which is technology, in order to send all those consciousnesses back to source. It was meant to clean house, but unfortunately it didn't work, because when you're creating interdimensional portals, you're supposed to do it according to the harmonic score of the cosmos. Just the same way there is a musical score that directs the symphony when it is playing. There is a cosmic score that determines when consciousness shall and shall not leave the source. It's birth and return, or death or ascension. And there is a cosmic beat to this. And these beings did not follow that cosmic beat. And technology, their goddess, did not follow the cosmic beat either. So basically it destabilized the magnetosphere of Mars, which doesn't exist anymore, destroyed their atmosphere, destroyed their technology-based culture. And so their consciousnesses had no place left to go. They didn't have artificial containers to occupy. They didn't have bodies like biological containers to occupy. They didn't have a bridge of love to get back to the source. They didn't have an artificial doorway or portal to get back to the source. So what they did was inserted themselves into the human genetic code. And I jokingly refer to this as the genetic squashing, which happened about 10 or 20,000 years ago. But really this was an invasion, a mind rape. And I'm relating all of this now to you. Usually my broadcasts are a lot more fun, pleasant. They have an easygoing sense. If you are sensing an urgency in my voice right now, there's a reason for that. It's because so basically all of human history has been the story of you, organic, biological, multicellular containers, and your consciousness being oppressed and suppressed and diminished in your own divine innate connection to the source or God or where consciousness comes from, and being controlled and manipulated. And this is the story of human culture. It's the story of losing your telepathic abilities and creating language as a way of speaking to other people. It's the story of moving away from ingesting pure sunlight and moving towards ingesting resources like eating food from the world around you and controlling and domesticating agriculture and creating domesticated animals and food production and all of that. And it is also the story of how you have not been in control of your minds and consciousness up until this point. It is why I refer to your yellow chakra at the level of your solar plexus and your conscious human mind, your daily waking operating system, as a hacked operating system. Literally, the mind that you are implanted with when you're an infant and you learn how to talk to other people and relate to other humans is a hacked system that is designed to diminish your connection to source and make it easier for these, let's call them malevolent consciousness entities, to insert their own thoughts into your mind. Now flash forward to the present day, 2016. Again, I usually record these for posterity. You could listen to them out of order. You could listen to them 10 years in the future. They would still be relevant. Today's broadcast is different because I'm bringing to you information about how the circumstances on Earth have changed within the past week. Please listen. So basically, if you are unaware, there is a difference between a condensation trail, or what is known as a contrail, which comes out behind an airplane and looks like a bright white streak that only lasts for a little while, like a few seconds, maybe a few minutes, and then fades, does not create a long, persistent trail in the sky. And to contrast that with what are currently deemed chemtrails, or persistent aerosols that are sprayed out of planes or what appear to be planes in the sky and that linger. And it's not just a straight white line. The line disperses, and sometimes it disperses to a chemical milky haze that fills up the entire atmosphere. And people have noticed that there are more of these, they look like oil slick rainbows in clouds. This is not the traditional rainbow when you see an arc, like a portion of a circle going across the sky. And what you're seeing is similar to what you see in a parking lot where there is petroleum floating on water and refracting light in an iridescent pattern. So again, many of you are probably already aware of this. I mean, I've been aware of this for many years. In my own personal approach to life, I tend to focus on the things that are most effective for fueling my journey moving forward. So although I've been aware that there are persistent chemicals that have been sprayed in the air, I didn't focus on it every day, and it wasn't affecting my health, and I didn't allow it to impede my capacity to envision a good future or move forward on a regular basis, okay? Now, there are some people who have extreme chemical sensitivities, and they've been affected by these chemicals for a long time, but for the most part, up until this year, the chemicals have stayed up above 30,000 feet in the stratosphere where they are sprayed. And only very recently, starting about March 15th of 2016, in my experience, there are new dispersant agents that are being added to the aerosol spray that are now making the chemicals come down closer to the level of where you and I live on the surface. So now I'm just going to give you all of the information that I have as dispassionately as I possibly can, and help you in drawing your own conclusions, but not dictate to you what is happening. So the first thing is that yes, there are many tests that have been done on both air and water and snowpack that show elevated levels of aluminum and also barium and strontium. And these are not naturally occurring metals, and these are the same metals that fit with, I should say, the presumption. They fit with the presumption of the chemical components that we see being sprayed in visual trails in the air. There is evidence in terms of video evidence. Many observers have been filming these objects in the sky as they create these trails. And so if you are a skeptic at all and you say these are just persistent contrails of frozen water vapor, there are some videos where you can see the spray clearly starting and stopping and starting and stopping. So whether it is intentionally controlled by the pilot of that vehicle or whether it is controlled from an operator that is not present on that vehicle, there is an intelligence behind the dispersion of the aerosol sprays. And so basically my personal experience is since March 15th, I noticed a non-viral, non-bacterial infection come inside of me. And it felt similar to when I was bitten by a Lyme disease tick. And in the day or so before I was able to get the antibiotics, in that experience, I connected with the mycoplasm that was in my body and learned from it and spoke to it and found out about it and its origins and what it was doing in my body. And then, of course, got medicine and cleared it all out. The experience that I had on March 15th was a similar experience. So I am classifying this as mycoplasm, which is a type of infection that does not have a cell wall and is not easily defined as either a virus or a bacteria. And in my own body experience, it caused nose and throat irritation, but not with mucus like a regular cold, and severe brain inflammation. And I felt it happen overnight. And I'm a person who already has neurological frailties, and I take anti-seizure medications and have suffered with epilepsy for a long time. So this is definitely the weak point where I feel disease the most. I felt it inflame my brain, and I felt it inserting intrusive thoughts. As the disease, felt worse as the night went on, I felt the intrusive thoughts becoming louder and more persistent. And so, of course, I have non-physical doctors. In case you're new to my broadcasts, I can't believe this is the first episode that you're listening to. Let me introduce myself. My name is Aurora. I'm a walk-in. I'm not the original inhabitant of this physical body. I'm an otherworldly abstraction in human form. So I am still connected to my abstract family members that are in another world. And when my physical body is sick, they certainly help, to heal my physical body. So they helped me to kick out this invader that I had inhaled, and I learned a lot from the experience, and it was trying to go deeper into my organs and hide out. So my basically non-physical spirit doctors helped me to clear this out of my system, and then the next day I felt such a difference that the brain inflammation was gone and the intrusive thoughts were gone. Okay, now I bring this up because, Aurora, why didn't you just record a radio show on March 16th all about your experience? Well, this was one of the puzzle pieces that I was putting together with many other people. So the amazing thing was that recently I watched a video of someone else who lives on the West Coast who had a similar experience. Hers was a couple of days before mine. Similar symptoms and she had to detoxify her body, and she ended up doing so successfully with a powdered bentonite clay and silica mix. And the symptoms were very similar, and she also had the sense that there was a mind control aspect to this disease. I'll also tell you that in the past, when I have been exposed to an earthly disease, I am able to tell that it's an earthly disease, like a cold or a virus or a flu or something like that. It's like when I'm exposed to pollen, I can sense this is from this planet. This is not something to be concerned about. And when I felt that feeling on March 15th, it did not feel like a disease that originates from this place that I'm familiar with. It didn't feel like it was part of Earth. Okay, so early April, brief pause while I save my work. In early April, and I live in Northern California, like in the Redwood Forest region, I started noticing that my throat and nose were burning, and our weather had just turned lovely springtime weather, so we had just started opening up the doors and windows, and I am not allergic to pollen. And so I really started to notice that this was going on, and instead of going outside and enjoying myself, I actually was choosing to stay inside and to stay away from all of this. And over time, this was early April, over about a week, I noticed that it was causing a lot of tiredness. And not the type of tiredness where it's like, oh, I'm tired and I think I will lie down and take a nap. Tiredness like it was more difficult for me to lift my elbows up to the level of my shoulders. Muscular tiredness, muscular weakness, loss of grip strength in my hands, and so this is, these are symptoms of ingesting heavy metals, such as aluminum, and things really intensified last week when I noticed that the air quality was so bad that I literally, not only keeping my doors and windows closed, not only did I get an ionic air purifier to keep going in my house, my nose and throat were constantly burning, even inside of my house. I started wearing a VOC respirator in my house. This is the type of respirator I wear when I am using, it's called pardon me while I mix my words up, volatile organic compounds. And this is like spray paint. So it's the best type of respirator I have available, and to filter out not only gases but also tiny particles. And I didn't begin to experience relief in the extreme tiredness and muscular weakness until I started wearing the respirator all day long in my own house. So this was, if today is April 14th, this was beginning on Friday of the week that just passed. And so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I wore a respirator as much as I possibly could. I also started taking chlorella because this is a naturally occurring type of algae that is known for detoxing heavy metals from the body, and it has the capacity to cross the blood-brain barrier. And there are studies that show that it is good at drawing out chemical contaminants. So now let me tell you about my experience of just a day or so ago, meeting a friend for lunch. So all weekend long, I hunker in my house wearing a respirator and feeling like I'm barely okay if I wear that all day long. And of course, you cannot sleep with it at night. I went to meet a friend for lunch, and I could not wear a respirator while I ate lunch with my friend. I was in Arcata, California. As I'm sitting in this restaurant and breathing in the air. I felt my nose and throat burning a lot more. I felt confusion and passivity and a sense of emotional lightheartedness is the only way I can describe it. So I'm having a conversation with my friend. It was actually very difficult to uphold the conversation, and I noticed my friend was also having a lot of confusion, like in talking about their life plans and what they wanted to do. They were almost like throwing their hands up in the air and saying that they didn't know what to do with their life or what they would do over the next couple of months, and that they had felt a persistent chronic sore throat over the past couple of weeks with swollen lymph nodes there, and that their hair had changed quality to it and felt dull and lifeless, and their scalp was different. Okay? These are important clues to note. So during that, couple of hours that I was without my gas mask, I felt it more and more difficult to breathe, to concentrate, to choose the right word in a sentence and speak and articulate in the way that I ordinarily do. Left the restaurant, got in my car, put the mask back on. So I'm driving around wearing a respirator. I'm sure people are wondering what is going on. And within 10 minutes, the fogginess lifted, the tiredness lifted, and the emotional passivity lifted. And my true emotional state returned because I felt pissed off. I felt angry. I felt this is not right, and this is not a world that I wish to live in, or I do not wish to live this way in the world, a world where I can only go outside wearing a respirator or have to wear a respirator inside of my house all the time. So now I have to give you one more crucial clue so that you know what was being sprayed and why we had that experience of feeling so tired and passive. Hours later, after I came home, pardon me if this is too much information, difficulty beginning urinating. This is a side effect that is listed on some psychiatric medications. And I told you earlier, I shared with you that I am an epilepsy patient. There was a time, maybe about 10 years ago, when I was taking different pharmaceutical medications in an effort to control my seizures. So I tried all sorts of different medications, and I'm quite familiar with the side effects and the feeling of some of these pharmaceutical neurological medications. And some of them make it difficult to begin urination, like when you actually have to pee, to start your stream of pee. Again, pardon me if this is too much information, but you might find it very informative at diagnosing yourself and what you have been exposed to. Later on when I came home from the restaurant, difficulty beginning urinating, and I recognized that symptom. So my conclusion is that I have been exposed to lithium. I'm not sure if it's lithium the metal or lithium the salt, that it affected my urinary tract, that it affected my mentality, my emotions, made me feel more passive, and that my friend who's been living in that soup and not using a respirator, it affects your hair. People who take lithium on a regular basis, their hair gets thinner and falls out. This, of course, this is apocryphal. This means this is anecdotal. This is me and my friend. I'm sharing this information with you as a public service announcement so that you have puzzle pieces and you can begin putting this all together. Brief pause. I'm going to talk now about effective maneuvers to diminish the effect, and then we'll get into who's responsible and what we need to do. So, zeolite. I did investigation about zeolite. This is a supplement that you can eat, but you have to be very careful about the source of it because there's naturally occurring zeolite, there is artificially created zeolite. One would think that the artificially created zeolite that is made for human consumption is purer, but the process of milling it sometimes heats it to the point that it releases some toxins that you don't want to eat. So if you purchase zeolite, you have to make sure it's from a reputable company, that it does not contain lead or other impurities. I'm recommending chlorella. This is broken cell algae chlorella. And it's best to get organic because it's a phytover mediator. It soaks up anything that it comes in contact with. So if it's been grown in water that is impure, then it will contain those impurities. So try to get organic if you can. And the chlorella enters your bloodstream and has the capacity to cross the blood-brain barrier. And there are papers that were done showing that it can help to remove heavy metals like lead and what coal miners are exposed to. So this is very effective for you to do. So zeolite is also used in like filtering aquariums. And the way that it works through negative ion exchange. So you have this little filter in your aquarium and the water flows through it, and all of the negative ions that you don't, basically your fish does not want to ingest, get stuck on the zeolite. And then the amazing thing is you can even wash off the zeolite little rocks or put them in the sun, and that recharges them. They are reusable. So what I did that is working very well, and this is after a lot of trial and error, because as I'm sitting in my house, I'm not just going to sit there and say, wow, burning gases are attacking my sinuses, I'm going to do nothing. No, of course not. Ahaha. I went out and I got an N95 mask. This is the type of particulate mask you would use if you were like blocking out sawdust or whatever. And you can say, Aurora, that is not effective enough against nanoparticles. And if you do research, you will find out that filters filter out particles not merely based upon the size of the pore or the opening that a particle can get through, but also based upon electrostatic attraction. So if your pore size is 10 microns, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything under 10 microns gets through, because a lot of the way that tiny particles get caught is through being electrostatically attracted. So this is the function of how ionic air cleaners work. They create ions in your air, which then bump into the things you don't want to breathe into, which they bond together, and then they, stick to a wall or a floor or a ceiling or something like that instead of going inside of you. So the idea is, I have created zeolite nose plugs. I took, the brand name is Fluval, F-L-U-V-A-L. This is a aquarium gravel, and made tiny sachets using nylon stocking material. And nylon or polyester also has a natural electrostatic charge. If you are not a person that's ever worn a pair of nylon tights under a dress and felt the static charge build up, then I will inform you that this is what happens when you wear tights. And so I created tiny little sachets. If ever I am reverberating back to the Middle Ages with, the pocket full of posy, people trying to avert the plague, I feel I'm doing it now. Created tiny zeolite sachets, which I stuck inside of my nostrils. And this is the first thing that gave me actual relief. When I cut up the N95 face mask, I cut it up into little tiny circles that I could stick up my nostrils. And that was only moderately effective and pretty uncomfortable also. But it did help a little bit, and it helped even more when I wore a respirator on top of that. So the zeolite nose plugs worked really well for sleeping at night, and I noticed they didn't reduce the entire sensation of burning in my nose and throat, but they reduced it by, let's say, like 75%. So zeolite nose plugs as an effective solution. Chlorella, indoor air ionizer. Here's what else I can share with you in terms of research. I read an extensive article about a woman with chemical sensitivity who's been heavily affected by the chemtrails, not just within the past month. And so she went through an odyssey of trying all of these different type of HEPA filters. And basically the answer is that HEPA filters are just not effective enough. They filter out some, but not all of the particles, and they really do nothing for the volatile organic compounds, or the things that are in the form of a gas that come right through very easily. And just a little bit more, I spoke about the different type of face masks. There's one that's actually better than the N95. It's called the P95, and this means that it will work even in the presence of petroleum-coated particles. Because this matters because in the past, the aluminum and other heavy metal particles that were aerosol sprays, they pretty much stayed in the upper atmosphere. They stayed in the stratosphere, and they didn't come down as much. And now there has been a new dispersant, which I surmise is petroleum-based, that has been added. And so now those chemicals come down more, and it means that a regular N95 mask is not as effective. So it needs to be something that can also filter out petroleum-based sprays. And the woman who did all of the research about the various different air filters, she created all of the HEPA filters, all the dry filters didn't work. She created her own type of rain box that is like a filter that uses just water in a large chamber, lots and lots of falling water, and the water was taking the precipitate out of the air because she got the idea. She noticed that the air smelled better to her right after a rainstorm, that the rain naturally was taking out the chemicals. Then, and this was several years ago that she wrote her article, she noticed that the formula of the chemtrails changed and her air, water-based chamber didn't work anymore. So she switched it over to oil, using corn oil, and that is when she found relief. However, it was not a practical solution because it also injected tons of corn oil into the atmosphere of her home and coated every surface. This is not practical, got on the computer and everything like that. But I share this as public service announcement because I've done a lot of research, and here's some information that these oil-based contaminants are best removed by an oil or something that is a solvent that can cut through oils. But of course, that's a different type of spray than, say, something that is an acetone-based spray. Okay, so birth of a new dimension. I do this broadcast, and really my purpose on earth in terms of the artwork that I share and the ideas that I share through my videos and teaching and through this broadcast here, this is all about freeing the human mind. You know, I call it a hacked operating system. These are patch codes for your hack, and the patch codes do not come merely from me. They come from the stellar network. The sun is your nearest broadcaster of intelligence from the stellar network. So we are all intended to be humans constantly connected to the sun and to the stars and never broken in our consciousness connection. That we aren't always connected is totally artificial. So the idea is through sun gazing and through inner cultivation and different meditation and breath practices, we can reconnect to the stellar network and directly ingest the information that we need to make our genes right. And the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is my own personal addition or my own personal tool that I have to offer to everyone as a form for rearranging your genes and rearranging your non-physical energy field. So you can perform the Merkaba. This is a protective shield that will help you to shield yourself from these energies. You can perform the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. This will help you to rearrange your genes and recapture what you were in ancient Atlantis, or let's say allow you to access again your higher faculties and the potential of who you really are. Let's talk now about where these chemical contaminants are coming from and why this is happening and why it suddenly ramped up. Okay, so if I haven't made it abundantly clear, you have to excuse me in this broadcast. I noticed that my flow of thoughts is not as unbroken as it usually is. My ability to choose the right word is not the same as it usually is because I'm really exhibiting the effects of these neurotoxins that make it more difficult for us to think clearly and to function under these circumstances. And none of this is by accident. All of this is intentional. So basically, I'm telling you that the end game has occurred. On Facebook, when people used to share information or videos about chemtrails, there would be a concerted effort by trolls and shills to discredit what was being shared. That ended very suddenly in early April. There are no more of these paid agents of disinformation that are trying to steer the conversation away from truth or inject confusion into what's going on. It's amazing to see the disinformation campaign suddenly ended. And it is basically like saying, it is not being hidden from you anymore. It is being done very overtly. And this is now overtly being done for mind control. This is why I've given you all of these details. It's why I've devoted this entire broadcast to this topic, so you can protect yourself from the fucking mind control. The mycoplasm was designed as a biological agent to take over your mind. Lithium being sprayed in the air is a chemical contaminant designed to take over your mind. If you're not familiar with it, lithium is given to people that are supposedly deranged in mental hospitals in order to make them peaceful and compliant. These are mind control substances. It has also been noted that the aerosol spraying is now occurring at much lower altitudes than it was in the past. So all of this means that the beings who are attempting to harm you have changed from the slow kill over a long amount of time approach to the very fast kill immediate approach. Oh, I'm sorry if I forgot to share that crucial information with you. Okay, this new and improved dispersant that is bringing the chemical contaminants down to lower levels. There are reports of thousands of people being sickened. On Saturday, I read a report secondhand from an ER nurse in Central Valley, California. So the ER nurse told a friend, and the friend posted it on a forum where I read about it, that there were 2,000 people that were in her local ER that weekend with upper respiratory distress, and that 10 of them died on that weekend. Okay? Now I'll give you another anecdotal story. This was related by a woman whose uncle died suddenly on the same weekend. This is just the weekend that just passed, okay? And the date right now is April 14th, 2016. The woman shared the story that her uncle lives in Hamptons, Long Island. On Friday, he noticed a crawling rash on his lower legs that was red and felt that he had skin crawling sensations. On Saturday, he felt so ill, he went to the hospital. He was urinating black urine. His organs all began to shut down. They diagnosed him with severe pneumonia, and by Sunday, he was dead. The doctors said that they have never seen a form of pneumonia that is like this, but they are just saying that he died because his lungs were full of fluid, okay? Again, this is an anecdotal story. However, the symptom of skin crawling is a good puzzle piece. It's a good clue with neuropathy. And neuropathy, this is the symptom that happens when your nerves are dying. When you're being exposed to neurotoxins as your nerves die, they make little pains. They're saying, ow, we're dying, ow, we're dying. And that's that skin crawling sensation. And so I'm sharing this with you so that you understand this is not any longer a situation where aerosols are being sprayed high in the atmosphere, and if you breathe them in for the next 30 years, you might develop a neurological disease and or die. This is, aerosols are being sprayed with contaminants that are coming down to levels where you breathe them in directly, and they are sickening many, many people. I've also read reports from Northern Ireland in the UK that there are hospitals jammed with people that have upper respiratory diseases. And let's also say this, if you are a person who suffers in the springtime from allergies, you might not even be able to distinguish these new symptoms that are related to chemical exposure from your ordinary symptoms. But I will help you out, because when you are exposed to pollen, your nose runs. You have itchy, running eyes with extra mucus to flush this away. And in my experience, not only am I not I'm not allergic to pollen, rather, but my nose was not running with mucus, and my eyes, although they are red, and my eyelids themselves are red and burned. And again, I've had chemical burns on my face when I was using glass paint. Glass paint is very corrosive, It has to be so that the paint will actually stick to the surface of the glass, kind of etches itself into the glass. And this, again, this is more than 10 years ago, and I was very new to using this type of substance, and I didn't know how harmful it was. So I was making all these glass paintings with my face directly over these volatile organic compounds, and it wasn't until it burned my face, I got a chemical burn, that I learned, wow, this stuff isn't good to be exposed to. And I educated myself, and of course began to use goggles and a respirator for protection. The red burning eyes that I have had since the past Friday have been similar to exposure to glass paint, not to pollen. All right. So if you're a person who usually says, oh, in the springtime, my throat is always burning, my nose is always uncomfortable, my eyes are always uncomfortable, please re-examine your symptoms. Also re-examine if there is even pollen in being released when you're experiencing your discomfort, because it is very likely that it is not, like some areas of Vermont where it is literally too early for the pollen to be released, but people were experiencing great difficulties in breathing. Okay, so now let's get into cast of characters and who the heck is doing all of this. When I first got onto the chemtrails forum boards, a month or so ago, people share all of their different information and also their theories about what is going on and who's doing it and everything like that. And so the best information that I can share with you is that it appears from observation that many people have gathered together, both military and what appear to be marked as commercial passenger airlines, and vehicles that do not appear to be regular airplanes at all. All three of these types of vehicles emit persistent aerosol chemical trails in the atmosphere. So there are videos of, let's say, what looks to be a Boeing 777 from the United Arab Emirates. It's got the markings on it, emitting an iridescent chemtrail. And there are also, citizens, like there are some people in Oregon, they use the flight tracking app, where you can say, oh, I see a plane in the sky emitting a persistent trail, and on my cell phone I'm using this app to be able to tell what plane is that plane, where does it come from, and where is it going to. So by doing this research, citizens have been able to determine that what appears to be passenger planes emit these trails. People who live near military bases have also been able to observe military vehicles emitting these trails. People have also been able to track like cargo shipments, commercial non-passenger vehicles emitting these trails. And most amazingly, there's some wild videos that I've seen that show orbs, and I'm not talking about a light orb, something that looks like a glowing ball of light, but something that looks more like a metallic sphere or a metallic baton that is moving or whirling end over end. So one really amazing video shows this sphere or orb leading a trio of other vehicles in the sky, and the other three vehicles are all in tandem emitting white chemical aerosol plumes. All right? Now, this is birth of a new dimension. We talk about extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional intelligence here all the time. I've been telling you for more than a year that extraterrestrials invaded 10,000 years ago. The bad news is they already invaded, and the good news is that, there are those of us that are also here to help. This is endgame. The fact that the chemtrails are not being denied or hidden from you anymore, and that they are blatantly being used to control your mind and reduce your health to the point of death or, severe incapacitation, these should be your clues that the beings that inserted themselves into the human genetic code. So this is, let's very, very briefly. when they raped themselves into the human genetic code. That caused a lot of people to die instantaneously. This was ancient Atlantis, all right? A lot of people fought against the interior invaders. So like inside of their own minds, they were fighting for control of their own thoughts and behavior. And some people lost that battle, and the invaders took over their personality, their thoughts, their behavior, and everything about them. When those beings died, they didn't have a way to get back to source. Those consciousnesses didn't have a pathway of love to reascend and go back to their home. So they got stuck on the interstices. I speak about the interstices all the time. This is the membrane between levels of consciousness. And those beings, those malevolent beings, they set up camp on the interstices. The interstice is supposed to be a flowing membrane of death that recirculates energy. It unmakes you and brings you back to the beginning. And they said, we refuse to be unmade. We refuse to be unraveled. We're going to stay here in one piece. Like I say to you, the turds that refuse to flush, they keep on circling the bowl, not being refined, not learning, not growing, not changing, but vampiring or feeding off of the negativity, the negative emotions of beings who actually are alive. All right? These beings, they have perpetrated mind control on the weaker and more vulnerable aspects of humans for a long time. These are humans that do not have the willpower and connection to their own innate divine source to say, no, get out of me, you're not going to control my behavior. So there are a lot of people that are in the government, in military, in high positions of leadership who have given over their willpower to evil, malevolent consciousnesses. And this has allowed malevolent consciousnesses to accumulate vast wealth and to distill that wealth into the hands of a very small, we could call it a cadre of people, like 25 or 30 hyper wealthy people who, although they have organic biological containers that, eat food and poop it out at the end of the day, we cannot classify them as humans. They have given over their willpower, they have given over their sense of self and their decision-making process to something that is a malevolent force that does not even occupy this realm. It is an interdimensional being. And these are users of technology. So the beings that occupy the interstices, they are not powerful. They are not powerful in the sense that, like, you or I are powerful. We can connect to the source. We can connect to God. We can make life. I mean, if you don't understand how powerful that is, the fact that you can procreate or make a new living cell is amazing. These are beings that don't have that capacity. They are not naturally telepathic. They can only be telepathic using a grid or a system of telepathic apparatuses that they have created. So I'm trying to tell you, this is literally right now a battle between spirit and technology. And I will also tell you that technology is not in itself inherently evil. But technology right now is being used or controlled by malevolent service-to-self beings who wish to control your consciousness and reduce your free will. This is all about free will. Up until this point, the ostensible paradigm has been that you have free will and that you can avoid genetically modified organisms. You can choose what you eat, you can choose what you drink, you can choose what you smoke, you can choose not to expose yourself to the media, you can choose not to live in a Wi-Fi environment. However, you cannot choose not to breathe the atmosphere. Once mind control agents started to be injected in an aerosol fashion into the atmosphere, that changed everything. It's like making a decision to go against people's free will. The beings that have perpetrated these crimes, they try to use the rules of the cosmos in their favor. In the same way that, cajoling lawyers try to work the system and say, what exactly do you mean? How exactly do you interpret this? So these, cajoling, malevolent, demonic lawyers would say, oh, yes, it's not against your free will if I put genetically modified corn syrup and everything, because you can always choose to eat a different food. However, Once you begin to spray mind control chemicals into the atmosphere, you are directly attacking humans, and it is against human free will, and there is not a way to avoid it. This is why I am telling you and informing you in this broadcast that the end game is here, and that all of the rules that have informed the experience and behaviors and actions up until this point are now being thrown out the window. So those incredibly hyper-wealthy cadre of people that have concentrated wealth over many generations of basically dealing with demonic occupiers of the interstices have effectively controlled politics, effectively controlled the military, effectively controlled what is an unelected secret government within our own government that creates policy and creates actions independent of the officially elected government and independent of the official, the purported purpose of government. So I'm basically trying to tell you that wealthy people control the military, wealthy people control the government, wealthy people also control private plane companies, such as the ones from United Arab Emirates. It's not very difficult for these beings who have literally sold their souls to demonic entities in exchange for money to then take their vast fortunes and use it in order to create this apparatus for chemical exposure and mind control. And the apparatus is not only the chemicals that you're being exposed to, it's also the radiation towers. And these are towers that are in a variety of guises. Some of them are cell phone towers. Some of them are HAARP. This is the High Atmosphere Auroral Program. I like it because it's got my name in it. HAARP has been going on for a very long time. The idea is that aluminum is not a magnetic particle in itself. Nickel and iron are actually magnetic elements themselves. Aluminum isn't magnetic, however, it is affected by magnetic fields. So these radiation towers create artificial electromagnetic fields that affect the particles that have been sprayed in the air. And the particles are being affected in order to control weather patterns, but this is obfuscation. If you believe that this is only about controlling where it rains and when it rains, you are lying to yourself. This is actually about controlling your mind. It is not about controlling whether you have enough water to grow your food crop. It is about controlling whether or not you allow evil, malevolent, extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional or demonic forces to live inside of you and speak through you, okay? I'm just laying it out there for you. And in the last few minutes of the broadcast, we always have to get down to solutions. Solutions. What the F do we do? So I've already spoken about, chemical solutions for yourself. Take chlorella, protect yourself with zeolite. People do all sorts of things for detoxing and everything like that. Those are like for the objective materialist. And we are all objective materialists. We have three-dimensional bodies. We also have consciousness. We also have energy fields. We also have vital life force energy. And we also have spirit. So I'm not going to tell you to simply pray it all away. I am going to tell you that each one of us has an incredibly powerful, innate divine connection. And this is the connection to the source of life and the source of consciousness. And I experience it the most when I see the sun and when I can actually feel the sun. However, I can do it now even at night. Even at night, if the sun isn't physically present or if there's horrible clouds, artificial chemical clouds across the sun, it is still possible to connect with that source of psychic clarity. And that is who you really are. So what I have been doing, first of all, if you have a meditative practice, do it. Because meditation is one of the ways that you break free from mind control. So you need to be able to distinguish between who is thinking inside of your mind, the experience of cognition and mentation. Where do thoughts come from? who is really thinking? Is this really you when a thought comes inside of you? And I'm a long time mindfulness practitioner, and that is how, when mycoplasma invaded me and I felt a sudden change in my mentation, I was able to take note of it and really correlate what was happening with it. So if you have a practice your practice. Meditate. Sun gaze. If you are not familiar with what sun gazing is, it is the direct ingestion of nutrition in the form of light from the sun. You don't have to stare at the sun with your physical eyes. You stare at the sun with your non-physical eyes. Breathing exercises are also part of this. It is the collection of chi, or prana, or vital life force energy. We can also very effectively connect to earth, and this is really what I have been doing in my practice, is connecting to earth and connecting to the sun and the stellar network, and filling up my inner energy centers as much as I possibly can. And when I do this, it feels like it is negating the effects of the chemical exposure and the dampening effects that had. It felt like it was diminishing my spark, diminishing my passion, diminishing my creativity and my joy and who I am. So if you have a practice such as visualizing the Merkaba, do it. If you are familiar with the flying rainbow lasagna, I do that all the time, and this is very effective because this is a way to rearrange your genes into a format of a person who would not be adversely affected by these chemicals and electromagnetic fields. When we all become superhuman, of course, this will be we'll be bulletproof. This will not harm us at all. But of course, until you achieve bulletproofness, you're vulnerable. And there's nothing wrong or shameful in being vulnerable. This is what I really am here in this broadcast to share support and solidarity. We are all in this together. Yes, I'm an abstraction from another world, and I'm living in a physical human form here in this world. And my cells are as adversely affected by aluminum particles as any of you. And I'm here in order to say we all need to band together. So when you are feeling strong, send energy to the people who are weak. When you are feeling weak, draw energy from the people who are strong. Share social consensus. A big part of this, allowing chemtrails to go on, has been people with cognitive dissonance saying it can't be. I can't imagine a conspiracy so vast. I can't imagine people that are so evil that they choose to spray chemicals on their own planet and on their own people and then get out of their airplane at the end of the day and breathe it all in themselves. It is the cognitive dissonance that means people can't believe it. Hey, guess what? In World War II, in Germany, when people were being cremated in the thousands in gas chambers, ashes were raining down on the nearby towns, and the people in the towns were like, wow, where's that ash coming from? I don't know. Let's not think about it. Don't be like those German citizens, please. I am using such an unkind, comparison in order to motivate you. Sharing information, social consensus, and get on the meteorologists. If I want to tell you, I think that is the weak link in order to be able to bring all of this to light. I'm sorry that I don't have more time in order to share more information with you. Please stay strong. Thank you so much.